Thank you for watching. My name's Glenn Morgan, and this is We the Govern. So today we are back in Washington State, here to discuss the problems and challenges that we have in the Washington State Legislature with the assaults on your gun rights and our freedoms, which seems to be a common situation in the state legislature. And we are here at Sporting Systems, located in Vancouver, Washington, interviewing two freedom fighters that we have in the state legislature. And this is the first time, I think, Senator Wilson, that I've had you on the air for at least for a while anyway. Yeah. Senator Wilson's from Vancouver, Washington, recently elected in 2014 originally in the state legislature here, now serving in the state Senate, so fighting the good fight there. And on my left, a familiar face here for anybody who's been watching We the Governed, Representative Jim Walsh from the 19th Legislative District, also taking point on protecting your freedoms in the state legislature. I'm really honored to be here with both of you here today to talk about just what is actually going on and as far as these bills that inevitably come up every session attempting to infringe our right to keep and bear arms and to defend ourselves in Washington State. And since most of the action initially is starting in the state Senate this session, Senator Wilson, if you can just let our listeners know what's going on.
Sure. Well, we do have a couple of bills, and we're lucky that we only have a couple of bills this year. But so the first one is SB 5038, so Senate Bill 5038, and that is to prohibit open carry on Capitol grounds, and they've actually delineated exactly what buildings you could be on or not, and and not allowing any open carry near any permitted demonstrations. Oh my goodness, there we go, demonstrations. Yeah. So you can't be within 250 feet of a permitted demonstration. So, and I think, and then the other bill is Senate Bill 5078, which prohibits high-capacity magazines. So they've already changed it. A lot of great pushback so far, and they started out at limiting it at 10 rounds, and now it's up to 17 rounds. But, you know, there's an issue there. It's still infringing upon our rights, and so we're going to be discussing those bills this evening.
And I know one of the big, you've already had a couple of hearings on these bills, and tell our listeners about just the tremendous feedback that you've gotten from activists from around the state.
Well, it's been different this year because we are in a remote session, so everything is virtual, everything's on computer, which has its own challenges. But the ability for the people, so the people that are coming in to testify on these bills are doing it remotely. And so there was a massive amount of people that came in, sent a huge record of 3,200 so 3,200 people signed in to testify against the bill and 430 for the bill. So already, I think our maximum at that point in the Senate was like 1,200 people that have ever done that. However, it's a little different because you don't have the bodies there. And so that puts on a lot of pressure on legislators where you just see these 3,200 people that are signed in, but you only see who's on the Zoom screen, right? So they're making their points very well, but it's not quite having the effect that the pressure for the legislators. So those that are pushing this bill are not feeling the same thing they would if we had 3,200 people on site on the Capitol grounds. However, it is doing something because they have already increased the capacity to 17 rounds.
So they're already backing off on some of the
because they know the 3,200 were really 3,200 individuals chiming in, and the 400 pro were 4 people chiming in 100 times.
yeah, exactly. Well, and I need to know, Representative Walsh, since most of the fighting has been the big actions in the Senate, but you know it's shifting over to the House pretty soon. What's kind of your perspective on this fight right now in the state legislature?
Yeah, well, and listeners should know that you know, a bill can start in either of the chambers of the legislature, Senate or House, and it'll go through the chamber of origin where it starts, and then it has a committee hearing, and then it goes to the floor of that chamber for a vote. And then it goes across the Capitol to the other chamber, where the same process happens. There's a committee hearing on that bill, and that's where you can sign up to testify. That's where we can try to do some really constructive, effective amending of the bill. And then it goes to the second chamber for the floor vote, and and it's voted on, and it either passes or fails, and then goes to the governor's desk for the signature to become law. So we still have a number of points at which we can improve a bad bill or shine enough light on it that it just stops in its tracks. What we hope to do as these couple of bills that the senator mentioned, come across to the House, is shine bright lights on them at the committee hearing stage, maybe try to amend them a little bit more, and maybe amend them so well that they get bogged down and don't make it to the floor for a vote and stop at the committee level. Now, ideally, we do that. That's called loving a bill to death. We will pay so much attention to it and work so hard on it at the committee level that it gets stuck and it doesn't go any forward. It's going to be tough to do that this year. The two bills that Lynda Wilson mentioned are kind of what the gun grabbers consider their best shots, right? There are other bills, and we've seen these bills, previous versions before. They're sort of not exactly the same, but we've seen this type of thing before, so they're not really new. And they've got other bills floating around as well. The ban on the so-called assault weapons, a couple of really scary lists of gun owner type bills. But those have fallen away, and these two that we're talking about are the ones that the grabbers really think they can get through the process and to the governor's desk, where our friend in the corner office would happily sign them. So we got to fight. We got to fight hard. Last time round, we were able to load that high-capacity magazine bill down with so many amendments in the House that the speaker kind of didn't want to have that fight and just didn't bring it to the floor because they didn't want to hear 80 or 100 amendments trying to cure that bill of all its ills.
Now, what do you find, Senator Wilson, when you're hearing kind of the debate behind the scenes, and as somebody who's been a longtime defender of Second Amendment rights since long before you were in the legislature, when you hear the Democrats talk about some of these anti-gun bills or anti-self-defense bills that they're trying to push through, is there any concern that you ever hear the Democrats sometimes have about the fact this motivates a lot of people who are pro-freedom or pro-gun to come out and get more engaged in the political process?
Well, certainly. I think that's happening this year on a whole lot of levels. I mean, the fact that we have the lockdown, shutdown, and the fact that the legislature hasn't been able to have any ability to do anything about it because it's a one-man show right now. So now that we're in session, there's a lot of people that want to have their voice heard on, like I said, several levels. And these particular bills, I think, it's always the Democrats that don't understand guns. I mean, they've a lot of times they haven't even held one in their hands. So I've always offered to tell them I can, teach them how to do that, but haven't been taken up on that yet, so I'm looking forward to it. But I think that some of these bills, a lot of people don't understand either how they can affect you in real life, right? So you talk about a demonstration at the Capitol or wherever you're at. Can I bring up
Yeah, please do. Yeah, you have some good testimony.
Yeah,
some really good examples.
Right,
yeah.
And the testimony was this particular gal she's a mother, a single mother, and she went out and trained and got a gun, and so she wants to carry it. Well, right now, CPLs or concealed pistol licenses are very hard to get because, this COVID and all, and they're not getting in as quickly as they should. So they're months out. So their only opportunity is to open carry. And so this young mother wanted to protect her daughter, so she was wearing her gun, and she said, I had to go to take my daughter to the doctor, which would have been, she said, at the time, there was a demonstration going, of course, this is before the bill, she said, and it would have been within 250 feet of the demonstration where the doctor's office was. So she said, what do I do? I can't, you can't leave your gun in the car, according to this bill, either. And so what do? I can't take it off. But that now makes her the criminal, right? So this kind of situation these are real life situations that a lot of people don't really realize that, that can happen.
And that happens with a lot of legislation, of course. Exactly. It's drafted without people who necessarily know how it's going to function in the real world. When you're in there and having this debate, and I know sometimes these debates are going on behind closed doors a little bit, that people, especially right now, where you're not really seeing what's going on. But are you finding that, explain, I guess, to our listeners, the difference in the Republican and Democrat divide in the Senate and how it's kind of affecting these bills a little bit as well?
Well, in the Senate, we are 28 Democrats to 21 Republicans. Well, actually, there's a Democrat that actually caucuses with us. But you have to have 25 of us to pass a bill. And so that means that 3 of those senators don't have to vote on that bill, and they can kind of skate on it, so that if they're in a swing district, then they're allowed to not vote on that bill. But that makes a big difference. And we've had, the numbers stayed the same this last session, or this last election, but the people changed a little bit. So we did have, in the 19th district, we did have a moderate Democrat who was pro-gun. And so he would basically be with us when we were voting on these bills. And so a lot of times we were able to kill the bill. So we actually picked up the seat in that district and have a very strong Republican in that district. But we lost another seat and got a very liberal, progressive Democrat in his place. So that affects the dynamic on the floor a bit. So what we have to do is, and what you could do to help, is to contact those legislators that have either signed on the bill, and there were quite a few on both of these bills. So contact them and tell them why this doesn't work for you, or how they're infringing upon our Second Amendment rights. And it's the pressure that way to. Because that's what it's going to take this year, because of that little bit of change in the dynamic in the Senate. However, we always look forward to the House and the wonderful arguments they make on the floor. It's entertaining.
We love fastballs right over the middle of the plate, and that's what both of these bills are. Yeah. The bill on banning open carry on the Capitol campus or near demonstrations or such is really unnecessary. The justification for the bill is that to open carry around a political demonstration or the Capitol campus in Olympia is intimidation. And I mean, that's a little hysterical, but the real legal standard here already exists in the law. It's against the law already and has been for a long time to knowingly intimidate by brandishing, that is, open carrying or lifting out of your holster and waving around a firearm. That's already illegal and has been for a long time. So this bill really doesn't add much to civil discourse or protections or the law. It's a virtue signaling bill for gun grabbers on the left wing of politics. And there are some progressives and liberals who are for Second Amendment rights. So it's not even really appealing to all liberals, because we do have a number of liberals who appreciate constitutional rights and gun rights.
And some of them have discovered it more recently. Just
very recently.
Judging from how many Democrats have been buying firearms.
Exactly. So we know this is true. So this one is particularly a sort of weak basis philosophically or even politically. But some of these gun control bills that these grabbing legislators run through Olympia, they are what they call statement bills. Now, they want to get them through, and they want the governor to sign them into law. But they're accomplishing things even if they don't make it all the way through. A lot of these bills are appeals, frankly, to fundraising efforts that they do. And this is kind of the dirty secret that nobody wants to talk about. These bills are designed to appeal to funders, to contributors.
Like the Nick Hanauers or
Yeah, and a bunch of other trust fund baby, you know,
billionaires in Seattle,
guilt-soaked, you know, goofballs in Seattle, and some of them run an organization called the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. It's a astroturf group. Nobody really belongs to it, but a few of these inherited wealth billionaires put money into it, and so these bills are designed basically to suck up to organizations like that, who then contribute to the sponsors and the co-sponsors of the bill. So in some ways, I'm not even sure they always want these stupid bills to make it all the way through. Because if they get signed into law, they're out of something to run next year to appeal to their fundraising. So you know, we know that, and that helps us argue against them.
And the open carry issue, I know one of the arguments is it's kind of like the heckler's veto on First Amendment issues, which is the idea
Very much so.
that you can just send an instigator into a protest you don't like, and then suddenly, you know, open carry, or see some people who are open carrying, go over there and say you're protesting. I mean, you've got all kinds of little scenarios that it would set itself up for the way that bill's been drafted.
Oh, absolutely, and it's designed to clamp down on activism and free speech on the campus.
Right.
Well, and I also kind of want to follow up on that. So that is the case too, but also this is what we see. So they maybe water it down and then they come back a little stronger. But then it's the nudging effect, right? So we get the structure in place to have no open carry on campus, and then it'll be, well, the language is already there now. We just don't want any guns on campus. And quite frankly, there's been push out there by, I believe, the Gabby Giffords Foundation or whatever, to basically disarm people on Capitol campuses. And right now there's 24 in the country, or almost. Montana's going to be next. I guess it's coming very soon. So that are open to open carry on campus. Yeah. So, but you know, we're seeing that across the country. We're seeing this kind of, but Washington always seems to be the state where they practice on, right?
Well, and the ratchet effect, like you said, has always been anybody who's paid attention to gun rights. You know, for many years, I remember arguing about this in the '80s with the first assault weapons ban, right? That they tried and then threw out later on. You know, but all the drama that came around that, and this idea that they're always trying to ratchet down our freedom. Government's not there to give more freedom; they're always there to try to ratchet down. And these bills are just an indication to that.
The Ninth Circuit Court, by the way, has tossed a California attempt to limit, high-capacity magazines. Right. So they know this. The sponsors of this bill know that the federal courts have already said that bills like this are unconstitutional. Right. So it's very likely, if this thing were to pass and were to be signed into law, I'm sure someone would challenge the constitutionality of it, and using the recent Ninth Circuit Court decision in California as the precedent, it would likely get thrown out.
But they did change that a little bit so that they addressed that. Duncan versus Becerra, they did change that in the bill.
They claimed they did. The sponsor
They claimed they did. Right. I'm not really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some attorneys out there who could find all of this.
Right.
Yes. Right.
Well, now, and I know you guys have both been in the trenches now for years in these fights. If you had recommendations for citizens of what they could specifically do, I think I want to make sure that we don't finish. You know, when we're done here, we really are giving some people some very specific direction on what we can do. And I think it's important that they hear it from elected officials too, because you're on the inside and you know what happens when you get a bunch of these people contacting you about a bill, and also the importance of the testimony. Because as you've said, the magazine, high-capacity magazine attempt to restrict that, now suddenly, it's really standard capacity, and now they're suddenly realizing that this 10 rounds isn't a high capacity at all, and so that you see the changes already. And if you could describe that for our listeners, what that's like behind the scenes as that happens.
Well, I've been on the Law and Justice Committee or Public Safety since I've been in the legislature, except this year because I had to accept a different role and it didn't fit.
Lynda got a promotion. She's now in charge of the budgets for the Senate Republicans.
Yeah.
So last year, though, I worked very closely with our pro-Second Amendment gun advocates, and we had them come in. We gave them all the tools I thought they needed, and I mean, our assistant, she worked great with them. So they call in and they want to know, what can we do? Who's on the bill? What's their names? So, and then we tell them, contact the people that sponsored the bill, contact the people that are in the committee that are going to get the, if we can kill it in committee, that's what you want to do. It's a lot easier to kill it in committee than it is to kill it on the floor. And then phone calls, overrun their voicemail messages. Don't just call us that support you. However, I do learn a lot from letters and emails that come in that give me a different perspective, which gives me a better opportunity to share that information when I'm on the floor, right? When I'm making the case against the bill, because these people, they're smart, right? And then, phone calls, emails, well, of course, I would say normally up there, protest or whatever, show up in person, but next year, right? We're going to do it because we're going to be fighting for a while on a lot of levels on many things. So just be prepared for that. And there's telephones where you can actually text people. If you can get the phone numbers, I'm not, So lots of great opportunities, for people to.
Don't give up. Don't give an inch.
Right.
Contact by any means you can. Email is fine. Text messages, fine. Phone calls, still great. Give us stories. Give the people who are for gun rights your stories of how carrying has saved you or helped you or avoided trouble, how it's worked well in protecting your family or your property. We need stories like that all the time, as much as we can. Direct your rage at the ones who are signed on to these bad bills. Don't tell them the good stories, tell them to us. But direct your frustration and your anger at the ones who sign on to these gun-grabbing bills. And we'll talk and have links on next to this video for how you can contact. But the website ledge.wa.gov is the standard way to get information about the legislature and bills.
And that's a great place to go, and make sure you leave comment. That's what you're talking about, with all these people signing in on these hearings and these bills, where you actually go in and it'll automatically send emails, of course, to your legislator where you actually live. And that's particularly important if you live in a very deep blue area and your legislator is one of those people that signed on. They will pay attention to the people, particularly them, who live in their district, and knowing that those people. And always be respectful, but definitely making a point of saying, listen, I'm going to dedicate myself to, focusing on people who don't appreciate my ability to defend myself and want to remove that from me, or something to that effect. It's probably pretty effective.
Well, and you can still call in and try to get an appointment, right?
Right.
And we're doing them Zoom.
Right.
So it's easy, but it's, to try.
Right. And in theory, they should be. It's not a good idea to be throwing your constituents out and say you don't want to meet with them.
No, that's right. Yeah.
No, that standard meeting is a 15-minute block of time, and you would get a little Zoom link that your legislator would send you, and you would, at the appointed time, click on that link, and you'll be in a Zoom meeting with your picture up and the legislator's picture up, and you've got 15 minutes to make your case, pro or con.
And as always, I think it's a good idea to join with others that have similar ideas about these rights and defending our rights and freedom, making sure that you share that information with other people that you know, especially new gun owners. We all know a bunch of people who have never owned a firearm before. Now they're concerned about defending themselves with the chaos that's going on. They realize it's up to them, not to the government, to protect them. It's a first line of defense. And joining groups like the Washington Civil Rights.org, it's a new group in Washington that's focused on gun rights as well as other civil rights. We know that some of the more traditional groups sometimes might be a little bit less effective, in finding local groups that are focused on these issues here in Washington State. Like that really does make a difference. And we will provide links down below in the video for anybody who wants to access that information. And I guess if there's any final thoughts for people who care about our gun rights and our freedom, Senator Wilson, what would you share with our listeners?
Just keep fighting. We are making a difference because these bills haven't passed. So clearly we're making statements and they know we're out here. And the numbers are growing. If you take a look at what's going on out there, there are more, particularly in this shutdown, that nobody knew was coming. How weird that we're going through this. And I think that that's where a lot of people really... I think, like you mentioned, new gun owners, there's so many of them that they don't understand the system and they're getting frustrated. And so that's how we're bringing more people in. And so I think that we're here to fight for you, and you just need to help support us fight for your rights.
Okay.
Call, email,
Yep.
text. Keep in mind this too. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling like your voice isn't heard, if you're frustrated at what you see in either DC or Olympia, remember that it's a good fight to defend your right to keep and bear arms. Because the old saying is true. The Second Amendment is the one that protects all the other amendments. And what I put to some of my more progressive colleagues in Olympia is gun rights stand for all the other constitutional rights. And the kind of person who will defend your right to keep and bear arms is the kind of person who will defend your right to speak your mind, to free speech, to practice religion as you want, to own property and keep property as you want. So it's more than just about open carrying or having a CPL and concealed carrying. It's about an attitude that protects your foundational rights to live your life as you want to live, not as some well-meaning but not very logical legislator tells you you should live your life. It's not just about defending gun rights, it's about defending all rights.
Well, I want to thank you guys here so much, both of you, for being here. And I'm going to point out that if any of our listeners want to contact Senator Wilson and thank her or give her some other ideas for how to lead this fight in the Senate side, go to lindawilson.src.wastateleg.org. I'm going to have that link down below. And also, if you want to go to Representative Jim Walsh's website or contact him directly, representativejimwalsh.com. And the two bills, again, if you want to log in and make sure that you make a comment on this while they're still on the Senate side of the legislative process, Senate Bill 5038, which is the open carry bill, I encourage you to go there to look at it, and Senate Bill 5078, that's the magazine restriction bill. Do take a look. I know there's been amendments changed there, but it's worth going to both of those. And you can find those at leg.wa.gov. And go to the menu bill tracker on the left. You can actually type in the bill number and you can look it up in both of those cases. Again, I'll have those linked down below in the video. And I just want to thank both of you guys for being here. And hopefully we can have another meeting about this, very positive discussion. I also called out, and I do want to make a point, I'll link to it down below, but WashingtonCivilRights.org. I encourage you to join that group and join with other people that care the same way that you and I do about our freedoms, that some of our elected officials do. We need more people like this in office. Again, whenever I talk about these issues, I want to remind all of our listeners out there that the future does belong to those who show up. And you have to show up to make an impact. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, feel free to share, like, and don't forget to subscribe. And we'll see you next time.